Today on the show, I got blasted with liquid nitrogen as part of a medical emergency. All that and more on 20th Century Boy, the show that's still trying to make fetch happen. Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Nitro Mike. And this is the inside of my mind. Guys, welcome back to the show. This is 20th Century Boy, a podcast about me, Radio Mike, writer and producer, from here in Australia. And wow, what a week it's been. Good to have you back. This is 20th Century Boy, the conversations you wish you were having about the stuff that no one else cares about. Hey, I completely forgot to officially plug this, and I don't anticipate this being a massive thing, but I've set up a YouTube page, a YouTube channel that just automatically uploads every podcast I do on this feed and on the TCB feed. So literally everything goes up as just as a audio video. The channel is called Radio Mike Podcasts. You can find it if you go to my channel on my the Radio Mike channel. You'll find it. Just in case, you want to use YouTube as a podcast platform, you can just basically listen to everything on that one channel, including Harry Potter and the Boys. So, the idea of that is not to become a massive channel and have heaps of listeners and stuff. That'd be awesome. But it's more so just so everything is kind of being backed up on YouTube and everything's there. But yeah, would love for you to subscribe. I'll maybe put a link in the description to this podcast. But yeah, just another way. It's all automatic, right? So any audio and that gets uploaded to any of my podcast feed just automatically goes up. That's not including all the Patreon bonus content. Patreon supporters get early access to content, and there's a ton of exclusive podcasts to Patreon, which you can get at Radio Mike, patreon.com/Radio Mike. So would love to have your support there. But guys, I teased it pretty hard in the intro. I did say it was a medical emergency. It was not, but got liquid nitrogened. That's not something you say every day, is it? I got liquid nitrogened at the doctor. Now, let me explain this for a sec, because I think I've never really talked about this, and maybe this is just part of me, a theme on the pod recently is me growing up, getting older, and becoming a little bit more responsible for my actions and a little bit more responsible for, my health and all of these things, okay? Taking positive steps in those directions, right? And I realized, when I was a kid, I had, a regular GP that I would see in queue. And, was a good doctor when I was a kid, and, did help me with a bunch of stuff. For example, I'm pretty sure I have told this story somewhere before, but when I was a kid, I had a surgery to get something removed off my back, and it was botched. This is when I was 10 years old. It's probably a trauma I've never really explored much. But the surgery was botched, and basically the wound that was supposed to be a little scar opened up on my back and it turned into, I guess, a golf ball-sized hole on my back. Just opened up, the stitches just didn't work, the whole thing opened up, and essentially I had to I went to this GP and he shone a torch in my back and said, "I can see your spine, this is terrible, whoever did this surgery is terrible, I'm going to fix it." And after school, every day for a few months, I had to go see this GP, and he would do this cream thing on my back, and it would slowly heal up this literal hole. Now I have this massive scar on my back. Anyway, so I had this GP, and then had him for most of my childhood and teenage years. And then I guess when I moved out of home and stuff, I just no longer had a regular GP, and I didn't know who to see, and I'd just go to random GPs and stuff, and like never really felt like any of them cared heaps about my health. Like just they were just GPs kind of getting the job done, which is cool. Anyway, started going to this clinic near me that Claire goes to, and it's just a really good clinic with like young doctors around my age, and they just really care. So I've got this new GP and he's really good and he just cares. He like asks you heaps of questions. He like wants you to get the most out of your appointment. So he asks you like, is there anything else I can do? Is there anything else physically you're worried about? And because full transparency, I had an appointment with him because I was going to renew my mental health care plan because I've been going to therapy and it's been really, really good. So that's what I was doing. And then while he said that, I realized that I have this like weird thing on my right thumb that I guess is like a little, I don't know, like a wart or a callus or something weird. So I've got this on my thumb. It can get quite painful. I don't really know what to do. Like, should I just let it heal? And he's like, oh yeah, there's like a little infection and it could turn into like a big wart, which you don't want. So the way we get that off is by liquid nitrogening it. And I was like, oh, okay. And I have heard of this before, but I've never had it done where like I actually get something liquid nitrogened. The only experience I have with liquid nitrogen is in the video game Ratchet and Clank 3, Up Your Arsenal, where one of the weapons you can get is a liquid nitrogen gun that freezes all the enemies. So I knew that it had to do with freezing. And I said, yeah, bring it on. He's like, all right, so I'm going to shoot liquid nitrogen into your thumb to burn off this like wart or this infection. And it's going to sting a lot, but like the harder I can do it for the longer time, the better I can, like the better it will be long term to make this go away. And I was like, go for it. In my mind, I'm like, this isn't going to hurt. It's just going to be cold. Boy, was I wrong. I have never felt a worse stinging sensation than I have getting liquid nitrogen blasted into my thumb. It was unbelievably painful, like absurdly painful. I couldn't believe it. It was like a throbbing. My thumb was just throbbing. Like I could basically say there was an infection there. I could feel the infection dying and throbbing in pain. It felt like in the Harry Potter movies whenever they destroy one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, right? Whenever they destroy one of the Horcruxes and you get a flash over to Voldemort and he's like, ah, ah, and he's like throbbing because he can feel that part of his soul is being destroyed. It was kind of like this infection in my thumb was a Horcrux and the liquid nitrogen was just destroying the Horcrux and I could feel part of my soul being whispered away, okay? It was absolutely insane pain, and it continued to sting. Like, the worst part was, okay, the worst part was this. I left, like it was all good, I left, couldn't find my car, because I got out and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to just go home and like have a Panadol or something, because it's stinging like hell. Couldn't find my car. This does happen to me from time to time, and I don't drive much anymore. But as I was like, I guess I just didn't think about where I parked and just walked, right? And then I just couldn't remember when I parked. Am I the only person that happens to? Because most times when I park somewhere new, I just forget to remember where I parked. And I do remember at some point in my life, there was something on Google Maps where it would actually say, oh, this is where you parked. And I thought I still had that. Evidently, I don't have that. Or maybe you have to manually save where you parked. But I couldn't find it. So I was wandering around for 30 minutes and it was already a cold day. My entire hand was like purple because the liquid nitrogen had essentially just frozen my hand, right? It had just absolutely frozen it. I was like shaking. My body was stinging. I was also getting very hungry. It was just a terrible sequence of events. I just could not figure out what to do. Eventually found my car and I came home and I'm going to be honest, like the pain was so bad that I wanted to like either cry or scream but I knew that would be socially inappropriate. Okay, especially because there was a medical student in the appointment, like a medical student from Canada was there, and I didn't want to just be like, yeah, which is what I wanted to do, but I couldn't do that. But it was so throbbingly painful. I don't know if throbbingly is a word, but I've said it. Okay, it was absolutely awful, and it's been a week since that appointment, and you know what? I'm looking at my thumb now. It does appear as though, like, it's gone. It's now just sort of blistered up and like looks like maybe within a few days it will be healed. I'll keep you updated on that. But I guess the short version of that story is that liquid nitrogen is a great way to get rid of infections, but it will be very, very painful, especially if it's on the side of your thumb. So enjoy that story, guys. I've got a few things. One's really good, one's really bad. You guys are going to be very angry at me for some of this, okay? Firstly, though, I've realized in my old age, I keep talking about how old I am now, and it's true, I am old. I've realized that essentially my priorities have really shifted now. Like what I want has really shifted. What I consider like a great day, it has really shifted from a few years ago, okay? And I'm in this phase now, like we go to bed quite early. We love going to bed early. We eat dinner very early. We're like a retired, couple, retired married couple. We just eat early. We go to bed early. We wake up early. I was up at 6 a.m., okay? Up at 6 a.m. this morning. That is crazy. Anyway, on that point, I've also talked about over the years how like the older I get, the more just like basic and plain things are like my preferred choice. Example I've used in the past is like when I was a kid, I would love like any kind of wacky flavor of chips, like salt and vinegar, light and tangy, chicken, cheese and onion, would love it, any flavor. And the worst thing I could imagine was just a plain salted chip. Now, 2024, like give me a plain salted chip. That is all I want. Just a crinkle cut plain chip with salt. Same with ice cream. Vanilla is the most underrated flavor of ice cream of all time, okay? Don't give me this peanut butter crunch, Oreo, nutty goodness or whatever they call it at like Messina, where they come up with these wacky names for the ice creams. Just give me vanilla. Just give me a nice vanilla ice cream and I will be happy, okay? This is in that territory because Sunday morning, I had one of the best mornings of my life. Here's what I did. We woke up. We were like, we don't have anything on this morning. This is amazing. We literally can do whatever we want with this time. So what we did was do some chores around the house and watched Shrek 2. And it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful combination of events, okay? Because firstly, you get the dopamine hit of watching Shrek 2, which is an incredible movie, regardless of like whether you've seen it before or whether you haven't. It's a great movie. And I rediscovered my love of that movie watching it on Sunday morning. Okay? I could still quote literally every line. It still made me laugh heaps. And it's also 90 minutes, which is the perfect length for a film. Okay? But in those 90 minutes, while we sort of took turns on the couch and just doing stuff around, you're tidying up, you're doing a load of washing, you're doing the dishes, you're getting shit done, you're feeling productive, all while in the background, you've got this amazing soundtrack of Shrek 2 playing, okay? You've got I Need a Hero by the Fairy Godmother. I need a hero, right? That is an iconic moment in popular culture, okay? You've got Accidentally in Love at the start. Accidentally in Love. Classic song. Iconic moment, okay? All of this is happening while you are getting shit done around the house, and that is a beautiful Sunday morning, okay? An absolutely beautiful Sunday morning spent inside getting shit done and watching one of the best movies ever. Seriously though, like, I cannot believe, because I don't know the last time I watched Shrek 2 in full, but it is amazing that like, I was kind of thinking about this. There must have been... there definitely was a first time I saw Shrek 2. I can't remember if it was in cinemas or just like on DVD or something. I definitely saw Shrek 1 in cinemas. But I just must have watched it so many times over the years because I genuinely just remember everything. Like, even there's a scene towards the start where like a bunch of like bugle players come to Shrek's swamp to tell them that they're invited to Far, Far Away. And one of them goes on this little solo and he goes, right? And I still remember that exact thing to this day, exactly like that's exactly how it goes. And I just did it. And I was saying pretty much everything along with it, right? And I just love that. I went through this phase over the last sort of, however many years where I didn't like rewatching movies that I had already watched. And I think it kind of came from this feeling in my 20s of like needing to like never, I guess, waste time on something I've already done. So like it would be like, I've already seen this movie, so why would I invest another 90 minutes watching it again when I already know what happens? But what I realize now is that you should watch it because you enjoy it, right? It's not to like tick it off a list, which I feel like I've been treating it as. It's like watch a movie because you want to watch it. And recently, with all the like Deadpool and Wolverine stuff, and by the way, I did a bunch of content across all my platforms on Deadpool and Wolverine. Like I've really wanted to go and rewatch The Wolverine, which is the second movie in the Wolverine trilogy set in Japan. Mainly because at the moment I'm obsessed with Wolverine and I'm always obsessed with Japan. So I'm like, I need to rewatch that. Okay, so hopefully I will be rewatching that movie soon. Deadpool and Wolverine has completely got me right back into the MCU. Can you believe this? Okay, the MCU, I have talked so much over the last few years, if you've been a long-term fan of my stuff, I have talked absolutely so much about how I think the MCU is dying and no one cares anymore, blah, 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 and I still think that's true to an extent, but I gotta tell you, Marvel really gets how to suck in people like me. Okay, they really get it because the idea of all of these things, whether it's a Marvel, whether it's a Star Wars, whether it's a Pokemon, whatever franchise it is, now the idea for all of them, and I've said this before, is that they pretty much want it to be literally everything you consume is that. So that's why Marvel has like video games, they have TV shows, they have movies, they have iPhone apps, they have like books and comics and all of this stuff. So like your entire life can be spent consuming Marvel. Like that's essentially their goal, okay? And basically, this has happened to me in the past, but it hasn't happened for a while where I go and see a Marvel movie, aka Deadpool and Wolverine, and I come out and I'm so obsessed with it that I'm like, okay, here are the movies I'm going to rewatch. I need to catch up on this TV series, and I'm going to go grab some of the comic books and read them too. Okay? And now, sure enough, right, here's what I'm doing. I am now watching the X-Men animated series. I just put it on, Jack Sparrowed it, and I'm watching the X-Men animated series from the 90s. I am reading, I read a Wolverine comic, now I'm reading a Deadpool comic run from 2008, and I'm going to be rewatching The Wolverine, and I'm just genuinely back into Marvel and really into it. And I will be doing a video on YouTube sometime this week or next. I've already recorded it, but it will be about the big Marvel news that happened. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know, but find out. And I think I'm just right back into Marvel after Deadpool and Wolverine. And I actually am getting really excited about the future of the MCU now. I think there is a lot of scope for it to be really good soon. Okay. The thing that I think you guys are going to be really angry and disappointed about with me, but I do not regret it for one bit, okay? And it involves a previous sort of segment or recurring theme from this podcast over the years. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do this. We wish you a Merry Nomus. We wish you a Merry Nomus. We wish you a Merry Nomus. It's the middle of the year. Nomus, of course, is the famous celebration on this podcast of the time between December 25th and December 15th, right? Moving forward. in which you do not celebrate or think about Christmas. Christmas only goes from December 15th to December 25th. The rest of the year is Nomus, and Nomus really comes to a head celebration in November, but really all year round is Nomus. I have a confession to make. Unfortunately, over the weekend, I did in fact go to a Christmas in July party. Bam. I know. And I feel absolutely awful for it, but I had a bloody great time. I had an incredible time, okay? And that's my conflict, because I'm all about not celebrating Christmas until December 15th, but I'm also all about having a bloody good time and seeing my mates. And we had a great Christmas in July party, and here's the worst part. I wore a Christmas sweater. But hear me out, because there's actually a really justifiable reason why I wore my Christmas sweater, okay? It's because a few years ago on this podcast, I ran a competition where Typo, the brand, gave us 2 Christmas sweaters, okay? And I gave one away to a listener, and then I kept one for myself that says Mikey on it, being like, I'm going to wear this to all my family Christmases. Oh, bad idea, Mike. You know why? Because Christmas in Australia isn't cold. It's actually quite hot most of the time. It's the middle of December. So that must have been 2021 or 22 that we did that. I've never worn the sweater because I always get to December 25th here in my family and I'm like, I am going to wear that sweater, but it's way too hot. No one's ever seen me wear it. It has never come out. And as soon as I remembered we were doing a Christmas in July party, I said to my partner, oh my God, I can wear my Christmas sweater. For the first time, I can show it off to the world, get it out there. And so that's what I did. I wore my Christmas sweater to a Christmas in July party. And I think what we've got to do on this pod as listeners, we all want to enforce the rules of Nomus. And of course it is bad to breach the rules of Nomus as I've done. And I do acknowledge that. I acknowledge that I'm in breach of the Nomus policies, but I think we need to be forgiving. You know why? Because Christmas is about Jesus and Jesus was about forgiveness. So I think Nomus is about Christmas. Christmas is about Jesus. Jesus is about forgiveness, right? So I think we need to practice forgiveness, and I think we need to self-nominate if we think about Christmas, okay? So if you're out there and you just happen to think about Christmas, or you do anything Christmas related, maybe you've got Deck the Halls stuck in your head in the middle of August. Maybe you're at the snow, right? Here in Australia, there's snow at the moment. Maybe you're at the snow and you're like, oh, snow, Christmas, right? That needs to be self-reported. So get it to me somehow like, hey, Mike, look, unfortunately, I was at the snow today. I did see a snowflake and it reminded me of Christmas, so I did think about it. But, I'm self-reporting and I apologize. And then, it's like in the Catholic Church, they do reconciliation. You go up to the priest and you confess your sins to him and he says, no worries, mate, do 12 Hail Marys and we'll call it square. Okay? That's what this will be. So if anyone wants to self-nominate, I'm taking first steps in that, and we'll go from there. But apologies for my breach of Nomus, but I had a great time. I've been feeling really good recently, like work-wise. I mentioned last week on the show that I did this big pitch for these clients I'm working with, and now friend of the show Keelan and I are like working together on this project now where we're like actively developing videos for a client and their podcast, and each week we are working together. We're filming their entire podcast in 4K, recording the audio, getting an audio version and video content out for them. And what I've realized is like, I definitely have more skills than I thought I did. And I think I think a lot of us really underestimate what we actually can do, particularly because at least like millennials or like younger millennials like me and Gen Zs, like we grew up in the computer age, and I just feel like we're much better at doing computery stuff than the older generations, particularly like even like Gen Z. So producer Pat, who works on a bunch of my stuff, he is just way better, significantly better at anything to do with social media than me. He just gets it. He like sometimes I'm like, how do you do this? And it's like, how do you like put put a border around text on TikTok. He's like, oh, you just do this. And he just knows all the features. So I think, like, one thing for anyone listening who's like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, I don't have skills. You do have skills. And I think we always need to think about how everyday skills that we could take for granted, right, are useful and valuable. I think that is important to remember, that your skills are valuable and what you can do is valuable. And, you know, don't take for granted just your day-to-day things that you do well. Because often we can think like, oh yeah, of course I know how to do this on a computer, but like, wouldn't everyone know that? And I think the answer is actually no, when you actually think about it. So that's a learning for me. I've been really enjoying, you know, working with Keelan, and full transparency, most of my money comes from my freelance podcast producing. And you know, you can help me make money off this, patreon.com/Radio Mike, shameless plug. But generally speaking, that's where most of my money comes from. And so it's always really good to find this synergy of feeling really competent, feeling really good about what you're doing, and feeling like you're growing, you're offering value to someone. And I've been really enjoying this, this new step of work that I'm taking on, because I'm also doing, like, I guess a little bit of business management, like working with Keelan as like a freelancer and all of this stuff. And yeah, I'm really loving it. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today, but let us do this really quickly. Psst, the plug! I have a bunch I want to plug. So, Harry Potter and the Boys, my Harry Potter fanfiction podcast, returns on Tuesday. It is finally back after a brief hiatus. We are starting book 4 of my series. Head on over to that feed and subscribe to find out the title of book 4, or follow that on HPATB Pod. You can also follow this pod at TCB Pod on Instagram, and follow me across all my socials. Just Google me, you'll find me. Okay. My blog this week was on CrowdStrike and how I think it proves that the media is really resilient. So go and check that out. Links all below in the description, as well as YouTube content. I did a bunch of content today that I'm going to start editing up and getting ready to post online. Stuff on the brand new episode of Futurama that came out. I also did a video on the upcoming Harry Potter Quidditch game and why I think it looks really good. And I also did one on the MCU news that is upcoming. So please go and check all of that out. And of course, support me on Patreon if you like my content and get something out of it. That would be really, really appreciated. Guys, that is pretty much it for this week. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're enjoying the pod. I did a few guest podcast episodes on other people's podcasts that should be out soon that I'm really excited to share. So stay tuned for that. But from there, my name has been Radio Mike. This podcast has been The Inside of My Mind, and I will catch you next week. See you later, guys. Have a good one.